Welcome back everyone for an all-encompassing world's needs Cobra Kai watch party. Recently, Los Angeles played host to PaleyFest, a festival to celebrate great TV shows. Obviously, Cobra Kai was included. Most of the cast and the creators were there to talk about the show and share some stories. While it seems that most of the Q&A was variations on topics that have been discussed many times before, whenever I thought about this whole event, one question ran through my mind. It's been 4 years now since Cobra Kai debuted. 4 years of praise and accolades from everyone who has seen it. It's also been 4 years of people everywhere holding it up as the example. This is how you reboot a franchise. This is how you take an existing property and create something new. You've read it over and over again. 80s movies that could use the Cobra Kai treatment, and in so many reviews on the show. You've also seen it from fans on YouTube.
So effing good. Disney, pay attention. Star Wars, Lucasfilm, pay attention. This is how you do it right here. Home run.
And that's what people have been saying for 4 years now. 4 years of this is how you do it. This is how you create something new that honors what came before it and then also expands the story in new directions. Everyone everywhere has been saying it for 4 years now. Cobra Kai is it. Or at least almost everyone has been saying that. There's one particular group, at least as far as I can tell, that has made no mention of Cobra Kai as the example on how to handle a franchise. That group would mainly be Hollywood writers and producers. So yeah, when I thought about John, Josh, and Hayden attending this event to answer a bunch of questions, the only thing running through my mind was, why is it after 4 years of universal praise and held up as the gold standard of reviving a franchise, has no one else followed your lead? Now that is to say, if you look around, there's still reboots and adaptions everywhere, but I cannot think of one time where some writer or producer came out and said, hey, we want to do with this what Cobra Kai did with Karate Kid. We want to emulate Cobra Kai. Now to be clear, it's not really a fair question. There's no way they could answer that, at least not honestly and publicly. They can only speak for themselves, no one else. But this is something that has been on my mind recently. Reboots and revivals and adaptions of existing franchises are coming as strong as ever right now. But never once has a showrunner or director come out and said, we're approaching this the same way they did with Cobra Kai. You have to sort of wonder, why? Now in full fairness, there have been a few recent successes of reboots. The new Batman film has won a lot of praise from all over, but then that was building off the Chris Nolan films. It's also been done many times now. They followed an established framework. There was also the Ghostbusters movie from last year, but that entire movie owes its existence to the 2016 disaster. Either way, those movies had their own reasons and weren't directly inspired by Cobra Kai. Now maybe some people who've seen them noticed the reverence to the source material and compared it to Cobra Kai, but that wasn't the thinking from the creators. So here we have the Cobra Kai example, and no one is interested in following it. But that's because the people making the shows were the wrong choices from the beginning. When you know what to look for, you can see it instantly. At PaleyFest, Peter from Cobra Kai Companion interviewed the creators John, Josh, and Hayden. He asked them if they were at all surprised by the reception from the fans. Look at how Josh answered.
It's delightful. I say it's less surprising because we are fans of Cobra Kai and we are fans of the Karate Kid.
That's amazing in so many ways. Before we go on, let's hear it again.
It's delightful. I say it's less surprising because we are fans of Cobra Kai and we are fans of the Karate Kid.
Now there's a burst of self-confidence you don't see nearly enough. But when you think about it, the assertion makes perfect sense. They are fans first, and such die-hard fans at that. They know precisely what fans are going to react to, because that's how they react. I have more to say about that, but let's go on with the rest of what he said.
If you told me that there was this show out there that continued that story and celebrated that fandom and celebrated these characters and dug into every piece of that movie and pulled every thread to tell a new story, I would be in that audience and part of that story too. I'm just, so thankful to get to sit on the stage and talk about it and write it with these guys.
Wow, it's amazing how rare that is. He basically just gave their entire philosophy while making the show. From the beginning, they continued that story and celebrated that fandom and celebrated these characters and dug into every piece of that movie and pulled every thread to tell a new story. You would think that approach would be plainly obvious, and anyone rebooting or adapting a franchise with a massive built-in fan base would do the same, except they don't. In fact, they often do the exact opposite, and even crazier, they brag about it. I've been thinking a lot about this recently, partially because I want to talk about HBO's upcoming House of the Dragon, but also partially because of so much else that's out there. Let's take a look at Halo. While this TV show isn't a reboot, it is an adaptation of a video game franchise that has been around 20 years. It has millions of fans who love everything about it and are as dedicated to it as these three guys are dedicated to the Karate Kid. But the problem is, it doesn't appear showrunner Stephen Kane and the others making the show ever felt that same passion. In a puff piece in Variety, he laid it right out. We didn't look at the game, we didn't talk about the game. We talked about the characters in the world, so I never felt limited by it being a game. That's kind of incredible. You might as well look at the two quotes side by side so you can see the difference. And what a difference it is. Keep in mind, Kane from the Halo show meant what he said as a positive thing. He imagined you nodding your head in approval. After all, he's focused on the characters, and the characters are what counts. Of course that's true, but the problem is, the characters people care about come from 20 years worth of video games. If you ignore that, you are ignoring the reason the whole project exists in the first place. I'd like to say that was the only bad thing, but it's not. The article went on and said, one of the sticking points with the failed movie adaptation was reportedly Microsoft's rigid fealty to the game's backstory. But early in the development process for the series, the creators came to a crucial decision. While the show would draw heavily from the mythology, it would chart its own separate storytelling path. If you need a summary, that's a long-winded way of saying we're going to do whatever the fuck we want and we don't care about what made it great and popular in the first place. Honestly, the entire Variety article is really a long justification for why the show has little connection to the game that made it all possible. It paints Microsoft as the villains for demanding fealty to the game's story, something they only relented on after years of development and a convenient change in management. And it's not as if you can't take the story or source material in a direction previously unheard of. It's just that you have to earn it. Consider this scene. This is the best scene in Cobra Kai so far.
Holy shit. How the hell did you do that?
Miyagi-Do may seem boring, but don't forget it saved your ass a few weeks ago from Kreese. And that wasn't the first time. Nobody was more badass than Mr. Miyagi.
There's a lot going on here, but notice how it absolutely respects the lore and the past that came before it. But at the same time, it marks a major turning point where Johnny respects Daniel and embraces his teachings. In one scene, it is literally everything they constantly talk about. Respect the past while taking the story ahead in new directions. It's also the payoff of the previous 3 seasons building up the rivalry and potential connection between Johnny and Daniel. It leads to this point. Try to imagine this scene taking place in season 1. You can't. It wouldn't have nearly the same impact. John, Josh, and Hayden know you gotta play it slow. You can't shoot your wad real fast at the beginning. And to the satisfaction of both their wives and the fans, they follow through on that philosophy all the time. Now compare that to Halo. Master Chief takes off his helmet in the very first episode. Now that's something he just doesn't do. It runs afoul of everything in the lore and canon the show is claiming to come from. Except that doesn't mean there can never be a Halo show where Master Chief takes off his helmet. Just not in the first freaking episode. If you're gonna do something like that, you need to work up to it. You need to earn it. Then he's without his helmet all the time, and eventually he's completely naked. In just a few episodes, the show has not only moved away from the canon, it's abandoned it entirely. By the way, the creative director for Paramount Plus, the executive so to speak, called Halo a show an NFL dad can enjoy with his teenage son. Yes, that is the quote. Now, whether you're younger and you relate to the teenage son, or you're older and you relate to the dad, what father and son want to look at some naked guy's butt in a TV show based on a video game? This isn't exactly ideal father and son bonding. I'm reminded of Dan at Hoot when he was watching Netflix with his parents in the COVID lockdowns. You can be sure that is the face of the fathers and sons who actually did watch the show together, because no matter how old you are, that is pretty awkward. And I don't necessarily mean to pick on Halo here. There's certainly plenty of examples. Halo is just the most recent. This is just something that I've been thinking about in the run-up to House of the Dragon. I really hope that's great, but I'm dead worried it'll encounter many of the same problems. I'll discuss those in another video soon, but I just wonder, why doesn't anyone out there want to follow the Cobra Kai model? You imagine the phone sitting on the desk at Counterbalance Entertainment. Has it ever rung with some writer, producer, or director on the other side wanting to get lunch and ask, "Hey, what did you guys do? How did you get it so right?" Isn't there anyone out there that wants to get it right the way Cobra Kai does? I don't know if Hollywood types actually reach out like that, but if they don't, they should. Asking the successful for advice is something that goes on everywhere. Television was unquestionably in a golden era with the influx of great cable shows and then streaming. It was storytelling like we'd never seen before, but the evidence clearly points towards that golden era coming to an end. The endless shows, the content, just isn't capturing imaginations like it was only a few years ago. In fact, I feel like the word content itself is endemic to the problem. Since when did harrowing stories of the human condition, love and family, life and death, curiosity and heroism get reduced to a catch-all term like content? Content my ass. Content is but a shell of those things. You know how you can tell? No one ever said, "I love Cobra Kai." That scene where Daniel reminds Johnny how Mr. Miyagi saved his ass is such good content. Stories define who we are. Great stories can change your life. They're not content. So while much of television devolves into soulless, lifeless content, Cobra Kai lights the way forward. It has to. The only question remains is, will anyone follow? Because it seems in 4 years no one has, and that's a tragedy. We need something to look forward to, and the first person to say, "I want to follow the example set by Cobra Kai" is on the right track. Thank you for watching. I'll see you at the next watch party.